What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the Off the Bench Podcast Network. Back at you again with the second episode here of our NCAA basketball podcast with my co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find him on Twitter at Raider Jim 1090. How are you doing today, Mr. Martinez?
I'm doing well. I'm starting to finally pick up the sound of running shoes squeaking on the gym floor, which is a good thing. And it's a little more prominent this year because there's not many people in the stands. So that the thump of the dribbling ball and the squeak of the shoes, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's very the acoustics. I love the acoustics. Yes. To be fair, I've never been to an NBA game, but I've been to some college basketball games. For me, I think the best acoustics of anything is actually a hockey game. But the acoustics in sports are very, very overlooked. And my mom always talks about the aluminum bat on ball. That always brings up the Little League, Sunday mornings, Little Leagues, 9 a.m. Just the little acoustics like that. And the squeaking of shoes on the hardwood, like you said, definitely more prominent this year. And with everything that's going on, obviously we're not breaking any news here. You know what's going on. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and college basketball, not everyone's been immune, but they've had, I would say, a little bit more luck than football. So far, like you said, we've had some hiccups, but for the most part, everyone in the top 25 has played, with the exception of Tennessee. Well, I'm sure they'll get rolling at some point. It is the SEC. They're not going to stop for anything. But obviously at the top, nothing's really changed. Depending on what poll you look at, you're going to see Gonzaga, Baylor, Gonzaga, 1-2. And then we got Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, Creighton, and Houston. Now, these rankings came out earlier in the week before the Michigan State Duke game. Before the Baylor-Illinois game. So they don't update after every single night. So you will see some, why are they still there? You got to give them a week, although I don't think either of those teams are going to drop too far from losing the top 10.
Right.
But just the first team I want to start with is a team that's really caught my attention for an interesting reason. It's Houston at number 10. This is a team that's always there. The AAC they have a lot of very solid programs, not blue bloods, if you will, but they have a lot of solid programs like, Houston, SMU's getting there as well, but Memphis as well. Houston's already gotten wins over Texas Tech, a team that has been in the Final Four. Chris Barrett is one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. So keep an eye on Houston. They're already 3-0, and they're 2-0 at home, but they did get obviously in a neutral court victory. Keep an eye there on Houston. They're already at number 10, so I'm not, breaking any, news here. Very highly thought of already, but definitely a team that I think could maybe, I haven't really looked at the schedule or anything like that, but be a team that could be a 31-4 type team that maybe gets a 1 seed.
Right. And in the same, staying in the Lone Star State, another team that I think has been overlooked right now, and that's Texas. Texas is playing some good ball. They're 4-0. They haven't been beaten. It was a close game. Their first game, okay, maybe a lesser opponent or not as strong of an opponent, but they did play Indiana. They also played the University of North Carolina, who was ranked number 14 when they played them. They beat them. So I watch for them to move up next week, and deservedly so, because they're playing some good ball right now. Trying to think, they are going to be playing on Sunday. Sunday, they will also be playing Villanova, who currently is number 12. So if they can go out, beat number 14, and then beat number 12 the same week, they deserve to be acknowledged and recognized for that.
And that's going to be a big game for Villanova as well. They're not going to be terribly happy after the loss to Virginia Tech. If they're playing football, Villanova's okay losing to Virginia Tech, but basketball, Villanova is not okay with that. So that's going to be another big test. And that's a team in Villanova that is not your, fabulous freshmen. You don't have 5 freshmen that come in and out and they're, all drafted the next year. That's a team that's stuck. They did lose Sadiq Bey, one of their best players, but Jay Wright has those guys ready to play. To switch gears a little bit, kind of play the negative Nancy, kind of the team that not just myself, but most people are kind of maybe rolling their eyes at or raising their eyebrows is Kentucky. They are 1-2. They lost to Kansas. I think the offense, not really so much the outcome. I mean, they gave up a lead in the second half. That's not ideal. But the lack of offense, they could not get anything done in the second half offensively. That's a big worry early on. But losing to Kansas, okay, we're okay with that. But Richmond, now Richmond is ranked. They are 2-0. They're ranked number 19. They're a good basketball team. I'm not discounting that or anything, but I just, that was an eye opener to see Richmond be able to go get it done. Kentucky, this is, I feel like most years that Kentucky isn't going to win the national title. So I'll be the first one to say, I don't think Kentucky's going to win the national title. I still think they'll be in the mix. They're not going to finish 14-15 or whatever they finish out at game wise. They're going to figure this out. This is a young team. I talk about the discombobulation of the offense. A lot of these kids with COVID haven't really been able to work out together, get into that rhythm. So keep an eye on Kentucky. I will say Isaiah Hall, I believe, I just lost his name, had a fantastic game, 12 points, 8 blocks, 6'10".
Yeah,
Really
a monster.
Yeah, he is. I will say, like most, I would have to assume he's 18 or 19 years old if he's on Kentucky. He's only 205, so I don't know if that's just a typo from Google, but 6'10", 205 doesn't quite add up. But anyways, either way, he's going to need to put some weight on. So Kentucky is a team that I'm seeing kind of, the stock down in this situation.
Yeah, they're definitely in flux right now. And I've known some real strong Kentucky fans that are actually from the Louisville area. And let me tell you, those fans expect one thing. They expect top 10 basketball, competitive basketball, and they expect it right out of the gate. They started the season, I believe they were ranked number 10 in the polls going into the opening week, and to see them drop the games that they did, and now in one, I think it's in the AP, they have dropped down to 20. One more loss, and for the first time, as long as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, you will not see the name Kentucky in the top 20. And that's just unheard of, and that's going to make the fans, and it's going to make all the supporters a little bit nervous and start asking questions. And when are we going to get on track?
Definitely. And it's the expectation, like you said. There's no excuses. Pandemic be darned. We're Kentucky. You're John Calipari. Look at those rafters. Bring us a title, damn it, or at the very least beat Richmond. And once again, I'm not discounting Richmond. They're going to have a very good season, but Kentucky expects to win that game. I'm glad you also brought up North Carolina, because they're a team that's been right there. Obviously had a good week, fell to Texas. And also I was very impressed with Texas's performance against Indiana. Now, I know Indiana is not the Bob Knight, who's your season on the brink guys, but they dominated Indiana, beat them really as bad as I've seen Indiana beaten lately. So Texas, UNC is ranked number 14 currently. And they did lose, yes, like you said, that game to Texas, number 14. And West Virginia, I want to bring up West Virginia. Raider Jim will definitely have something to say here. Currently 3-1, got very close last night to being 4-0, but they were ranked number 11. Obviously, this is a team that's not always the first name that comes out when you think college basketball, but lately, since Bob Huggins has been able to put his fingerprint on that program, this is a perennial power. And like Jim Boeheim, Syracuse is going to play the 2-3 zone. Bob Huggins is going to press you. Now, knowing and stopping, two completely different things. I think anybody can tell you that. And they pushed Gonzaga, Raider Jim's Gonzaga Bulldogs to the brink last night. I think it's great for both teams. Obviously, look, West Virginia is not going to be discluded from March Madness because they lost to Gonzaga in this point. And for Gonzaga, they got pushed. the way their schedule works out, I talked about on the first show, they have to schedule very, very tough. And then they get the West Coast Conference, which has some opponents, but going from, West Virginia to Portland, that's a drop. And then you have to pick yourself back up to the NCAA tournament. So these games, I think, are great for Gonzaga. It only builds that fortitude and that, ability and want to kind of be in the muck and figure out how to get out of it, or at the very least, keep a cool head, because when March rolls around and you're down by 6 with 8 minutes to go, you're gonna need to keep a cool head.
Yeah, and I think this has got to be, in the 20 plus years I've been following the Bulldogs, this has to be possibly the toughest opening schedule I've ever seen them have on their calendar. They started out, they played number 6 Kansas, and everybody said, I heard people say, in just conversation, we're going to find out exactly how good Gonzaga is. And a lot of people didn't give them a chance on Thanksgiving Day to even win that game. Well, they did that. Then they came out the next game. They won their second game. Then they came out, played West Virginia, and they took care of business against Auburn, is who they had played game 2. And then they had the West Virginia game. And now they're going to play on Saturday the number 2 team in the AP, the number 1 team in the coaches poll when they play Baylor. So this is going to be, it's good for CBS. Unfortunately, your top game is going off at about 10 o'clock our time on the West Coast. So sponsors are going to be happy, though. They can sell a lot of cereal that day. And then after that, they in 2 weeks, I believe it's on the 19th, they're going to play the team that is currently ranked number 3, and that's Iowa. So they're taking on all comers. They're not saying no to anybody. Mark Few has always had that kind of approach. We'll play anybody anytime if they want to play us, sure. And so it's going to be interesting to see if they can come out of this COVID-ridden season, the opening of this, and beat 4 ranked teams, including the number 2 team. Wow, that's quite a resume going into regular season play and as a precursor for what's to follow in March Madness, as long as everybody stays healthy on my wooden desktop.
Yeah, you'd almost have to assume that it would be a 1 seed unless, something catastrophic happened in the middle of the season. And I'm glad you brought up the Gonzaga-Baylor matchup on Saturday. That's going to be a really good matchup. I do question what we'll see, though. You do have situations of how much do you want to show? Because obviously Baylor, maybe more so in Baylor's situation, Baylor's going to have some games with Texas coming up, some games with Kansas coming up. So they don't want to maybe go too deep into that playbook and because like I said, no one's missing March Madness because they lose Saturday's game, but we're going to figure out exactly who we are. And I don't think there's any doubt right now that the 2 best teams in college basketball are Gonzaga and Baylor. Whether it's 1-2, 2-1, we'll find that out at least early on Saturday. Baylor went out on last night, actually. We're recording on Thursday. So Wednesday, the 2nd of December, handled Illinois. They win by 13.
Number 5, also rated number 5.
Yeah, a top 5. An Illinois team that's been building for this. We remember Deron Williams, and I forget but he was there. And that year that they went undefeated, I believe, or had a great year. But that was the last time Illinois was really anything to be definitely this high in the rankings. Baylor goes over and gets the job done. And when you look at the other top 5 teams, the teams that have played other teams, they've had hiccups. Kansas had hiccups to Gonzaga. Duke had a hiccup to Michigan State. Those things happen. But these 2 teams have not had that. Iowa's number 3, but they haven't played anybody yet. So right now, I think it's these 2. There's a gap. And then everybody else that I think are going to be fighting for 2 other number 1 seeds that I really do think it would be very interesting, but we could possibly see a situation this year in the NCAA tournament similar to what, I don't know if they still do it in the women's college tournament, but a region where it's actually the number 1 seed. So it's the Duke regional.
Got it. Yeah.
It's the Spokane. So they are, forgetting the, hey, you can't play on your home court, almost the exact opposite, saying, hey, our top seeds or certain situations, the schematics might mean that, if San Diego State and UCLA are in the same thing, it might be better to have it at Pauley Pavilion. Some things like that. I don't know now, that's way far ahead, but if that is the case, a number 1 seed becomes the end all be all at that point. So
right.
Just looking ahead and looking at these games.
If I may, real quick on that,
Yeah.
the Baylor Illinois game yesterday, the one thing I'll say, and trust me, Baylor is definitely one of the top 2 teams in the nation, hands down. They had a slow start to their season because of COVID. The coach had COVID. I don't know that any of the players did. You might know more about that than I do, but I do know that they had a delay to the start of their season. They played 2 games before they went in and played Illinois last night. Illinois, that was their 4th game in a week. That's a stringent schedule. And again, when you throw in that Ohio game, they played down to the last minute on that. So you take that into consideration. They did get beat by 13, but maybe they were a little more tired going into that one. Physically, mentally, the whole thing. The adrenaline was up because we're playing these guys that some people say are the best team in the nation. But 3 games they played since last Wednesday. That's a lot of running on the court. So again, we'll see how it all weighs out on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a great call. And we talked about it last week on the first episode of this basketball podcast about Illinois having that schedule. And I think it also compounds itself in the fact that these kids probably didn't have the normal summer workout, the normal,
by all means,
fall, whatever has been building to this. It's been offset, or things have been off. And now you get into that spot. Obviously, there's plenty of basketball to be played. And one of the best parts about college basketball is, unlike college football, is, you can lose 7, 8, 9 games and still, if you're on your best, when that calendar hits March and April, ask UConn and Kemba Walker. Believe me, they were not the sexy 24 or 34-2 team heading into that tournament, and they go on to raise that banner.
Right.
So,
do you have enough in the tank to play your best 6 games?
100%.
That's it.
That's
it's
it.
A 6-game season.
And I go back to last year, and I don't know if they would have won the national title or anything, but someone would have been very frustrated Selection Sunday to see their name pulled next to Providence, because Providence was playing better than anybody in basketball, and they had some players getting healthy. Unfortunately for them, they weren't able to continue that. But as a Big East fan and following Villanova and all that, it was kind of just like, whoa, this team's coming out of nowhere and doing it easily as well. So hopefully they can continue, and hopefully I don't really know the specifics. Hopefully they still have some players there and didn't lose everything. Right. But I will just give up a little update on, San Diego State gets the win. No surprise over St. Catherine by 40 points. Good for San Diego State to play the local school. I'm sure St. Catherine's got, maybe a couple bucks for coming over and, get some exposure, get some playing time at a D1 level. I always worry, though, when San Diego State play these teams. I have flashbacks to a couple years ago when they lost to Grand Canyon.
Right. I was just going to bring them up.
Yeah. And I do know Grand Canyon is getting there. They're becoming a small power. I believe if the WAC is still going, I think that's where they are. But anyways, this was, I believe, before they were D1. So it wasn't anytime San Diego State gets kind of a smaller school, it's just tense a little bit.
Sure.
But they take care of business, remain undefeated. But Arizona State's on the horizon. Colorado State's on the horizon. Pepperdine tonight, I believe, being the 3rd, December 3rd. That was a late edition. I believe my friend and our colleague, Brandon Lupian, sent that to me. I think I got that date right. But I'll be honest.
I forget who their opponent was that had to cancel.
I believe it was Colorado State.
Was it Colorado? Okay.
I think so, but that might be, honestly, when I look up schedules now on Google, I don't know if I'm looking at the schedule that has been revised or if I'm looking at the old schedule and they haven't updated yet. So I do know at some point Colorado, or yes, you know what? Now that I remember, this tonight is the makeup game for the Colorado State because they were supposed to play Colorado State on the 3rd. So they're now playing Pepperdine. And then in the next coming days, I believe they will play Arizona State. Now, once again, that could be old schedule, could be revised schedule. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that they play Arizona State because Arizona State is in the top 25 and San Diego State has to be 28, 27, 26, or in the 20s because they did not make it into the top 25 after beating UCLA handily.
Right. Yeah. I did. I saw him break in. I don't know where it was. I can't recall right now, but I did see their name out there. One of the teams we mentioned, or I mentioned last week, because I don't know why. We talked earlier about Kentucky. You look at the top teams and you just always assume you're going to see Kentucky in the top 10. And when you don't, you're like, well, I don't understand. Why not? It's the start of the season. So for me, it was, what do you mean Michigan State's not in the top 10? I just love the intensity of a Tom Izzo team and Tom Izzo himself. He's entertaining and he's a good coach on top of it all. And sure enough, they came out. Who did they go up against? They went up against the guys from Duke and took care of business. And that was a good win for them. And now they're starting to move up a little bit. It's going to start evening out. As weird of a season as it's going to be, as hard as the start's been, by the time we get past the holidays, get into January with the start of conference play, it's going to even out and you're going to know who's really there.
Definitely. And I was kind of telling Raider Jim, that we do obviously on this network talk about, betting lines and stuff like that. Personally, I don't go after that until we get into the conference season for college basketball. It's just a lot of the games we talk about aren't make or break. Gonzaga v. Baylor isn't the end all be all for either of those teams. So, I'll watch the game and I'll enjoy it, but luckily there's still college football and NFL football to bet on. So I'll work on that. And generally, I don't like to do anything outside of the football until the Super Bowl is over, just because I'm so focused there. But for college basketball, it's moving forward. And I think one of the main things, obviously, besides the health, and, when we do these podcasts, I always kind of got to take a step back and remind myself and everyone, and just kind of remind everyone that the health and safety of these kids and everyone is first and foremost. If they can't play because it's too dangerous, then they got to shut it down. Now, we know that that's not the case because it's been done. They're doing it if they stick to these protocols. Now, are they? That's another story. But for college basketball, the most important thing is they put the student athlete first. Let's let these kids finish their eligibility out. You know what? If Kentucky has to take 10 days and they only play 24 games and Florida played 28, okay, then they can still play. I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here. It's 2020 and eventually it will be 2021, but guess what? I hate to say it, and I hope I'm wrong, but 12/01, January 1, 2021, I believe we're still going to have a pandemic. So it's going to carry into next year. Make sure that these kids and this entity, the NCAA, does everything in their power to make sure that these kids are given the option or given the opportunity to play in March, because my heart broke for those kids that didn't get that option last year to play in that tournament. I think of San Diego State and countless other teams that walked off the court losers on the Mountain West Championship, but never in their mind saying that was it. Our season is over. They thought, nope, we got a chance to prove ourselves. And then it didn't happen. So everything that we need to do to get there, I've said it before. I don't know if they've said it on air, but if we have to sacrifice this Saturday's Gonzaga versus Baylor, so that we can see Gonzaga versus Baylor in March in the tournament, I am perfectly fine with that. I hope we don't get to that once again. But I hope we're not putting ourselves in this sport in danger by trying to fit in the Maui Invitational and the Coaches Classic. It's just, that's just, I think, the last thing that I have for this one. But what about you?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think we've had that talk with the NFL, the NCAA. We've had it with, horse racing, for gosh sakes. We've brought it up there too with the guys that are working the backstretch that nobody ever sees, nobody knows what they're doing. And horse racing has done a fantastic job trying to control everything with the protocols they put in place. But now we're talking, the animals are not susceptible. The thoroughbreds are not susceptible to this disease. These athletes, these college athletes, you're absolutely 110% right. And these are kids that are still developing, and you would hate to think that one of them contracts something that is not only going to affect their college one season, not just a weekend, but maybe their whole season. But what if it really impacts them for the remainder of their lives? It's just not fair. So to the NCAA or anybody who's got by random chance, you might be listening, take care of those kids. And I think the coaches are doing that. One thing that I thought was really good to hear is I know the Baylor coach, I heard he was reaching out to other coaches. I know Mark Few and Self from Kansas were texting one another the day before their game, I believe, or 2 days before their game. How is it on your side? We're good. We're 100% healthy. Great. We'll see you at the game. That's nice. That's the kind of sportsmanship, and that's the kind of camaraderie you need to see.
Yeah, the exact opposite from what we saw with Clemson in Florida State on the football field, where finger pointing and they didn't want to play us. They just blame COVID.
No need
that's
for
the
that.
case, shut up and move on. Making Netflix or 30 for 30 in 10 years. Like, now's not the time. Read the audience. But I did hear that. I'm glad you brought that up. But those are the guys. Those are the character of these guys that I think with college sports parents. And I think you could maybe speak to this. You have to trust that person, that man or that person, that man or woman your child for the next 4 years. They are essentially going to be your mother and father on the road and in everything. And it's not just sports, it's life, and it's the going through school and all that stuff. So you need to have full trust in that. And I always hate to say it, but I think about some of the bad apples, the bad seeds that have made it in. I'm not going to go out anybody by name because I really don't know of anybody off the top of my head that I can substantiate with, but I'm sure you can go and find plenty, unfortunately.
Sure. And with college basketball, it's such a different game than football, obviously, by the number of players. It's a more cohesive unit. That head coach can look on the bench and he's going to tell you who every kid is. You may not have that situation with college football because you got the DB coach working with these guys, and if the third string defensive back or the practice squad guy, the coach may not even know that kid's on the team. The coaches for the basketball teams, they know their entire lineup, and they know who their backups are and who their practice squad kids are, their red shirts. They know all those. So I think I think they have a little more control over it.
Definitely. And a big part of it too, especially with college athletes, is how do you get through to them? How do you speak to these kids? And just be honest, if you're an NFL or if you're a college football coach, you don't have the time to do that for 85 kids. So you do kind of rely on your position coaches for that. But for college basketball, those Bill Selfs, Mark Fuse, Mike Krzyzewski's, the guys who have done it the right way, and you don't hear about them. Even if, some of these guys, their names have come up and maybe it was erroneous or this or that, but their names never come up. And they are really the bedrock of where we are in college football or college basketball, excuse me. And I think it means more for them to get this season off. And I think they take that on, that they're going to text each other to make sure that both sides are good. Because as much as they love college basketball, they know that if something bad happens to one of their kids, no matter what side, that is the end. That is the ultimate, whoa, not okay. That is the ultimate sobering experience. So thank you, Raider Jim. Another fantastic day. Back-to-back podcasts. If you haven't listened to the Call to Post, that one is out as well. This is, of course, the Off the Bench Podcast Network here, the men's NCAA basketball episode 2. My name is Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the Off the Bench Podcast Network. Time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. Peace out.